Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.
What's going on, guys? Rich Butler here. Happy New Year and welcome to the first episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade for 2019. Before we jump into the interview for this episode, just a couple of announcements. First and foremost, I know that our publishing schedule has been a little off. Within the next 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing shows still bi-weekly, but we're going to be releasing them on Tuesdays. Usually we would release them Saturday or Sunday, either overnight Saturday to Sunday or overnight Sunday to Monday. But I figured that Tuesday is just a nice, easy day where it will allow me to record interviews in advance like we've been doing, but also give me more time to edit in the midst of everything else that's going on. So episodes will be released on Tuesdays going forward. I also wanted to thank all of you that have taken the time to check out Toys and Tech of the Trade on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and Spotify. I appreciate each and every one of you, as well as those of you that have been checking out the shows on the RageWorks network. One other thing I did want to mention, if you haven't already, please take a moment and rate the show on iTunes. We would really, really appreciate it. Just helps for, a little social proof, allows us to book other guests, etc. So definitely any help that you can provide with a review would be greatly appreciated. Last but not least, as always, any of the items talked about in these interviews, links for them will be in the show notes. They may be affiliate links, as always, full transparency. If you buy something using one of those links, we receive a small commission. Of course, this does not impact the amount that you pay for the item, but the commission that we receive allows us to buy better equipment and make continued improvements to RageWorks to give you guys the best content possible. With that out of the way, a little bit about this week's guest. The RageWorks Creator Series continues, and we sit down with our very own Jay Santy. Jay Santy came into the RageWorks family initially as a writer for MyTakeRadio.com, and later on as a wrestling correspondent, and then from there, we decided to get into podcasting. Jay actually had launched his Regular Season Sportscast, and after I retired My Take Radio, and particularly the wrestling show for My Take Radio, I asked him if he had any interest in doing a solo wrestling podcast. Fast forward to almost 100 episodes, and Jay is going strong, hosting not only the Regular Season Sportscast, but Turnbuckle Tabloid as well alongside Olski. Jay also handles production duties for Josie's Boys Call Me When It's Over show and much more. We're going to sit down, chop it up, and find out what are the toys and tech that Jay Santy uses not only to create content, but just to make his life a little easier. Without any further ado, let's turn it over to Jay Santy on this episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade. All right, as we continue our RageWorks Creator Series, the next guest on the list is our very own resident wrestling expert, the incomparable Jay Santy. What's going on, Jay? How are you?
It's funny because I'm always on the opposite of the interview. I'm always on one side. I've been doing this for going to be 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think I've maybe been interviewed maybe once in that 4 years, maybe. I'm thinking. I mean, I wouldn't even consider that an interview. I think it was just somebody who just wanted me to crack jokes on their show. But yeah, this is awesome to be on the other end. Great.
Jay Santy's you know, his origin story is interesting. He, you know, we had some mutual acquaintances, and our passion for wrestling connected us. And then Jay came on board. Writing turned into podcasting turns into the man having essentially 3 shows under his belt, possibly a fourth, and, you know, loads of social media he's got to work on, juggling a full-time job. It's tremendous, man. First off, you know, how do you do it?
I feel myself with a lot of ambition and beer and wine whenever I get a chance to. It motivates me through it. No, but the other thing is too, it's like I've always wanted to do things creatively, but I always had that outlet. I performed when I was a kid. I loved being in theater. I used to do stuff, extra work for movies here and there in high school, and then in my early 20s. Then I used to teach here and there and after school programs and other programs and stuff with being in the theater field and drama and all that stuff. And I always wanted to find a vehicle for me, and writing was another thing that I enjoyed. So, you know, these days, when fast forward to 2018, and you've been gracious enough to give me the opportunities and the lanes to do, I just started thinking about doing different things. You know, it became, you know, the Regular Season Sportscast turned into Turnbuckle Tabloid. Turnbuckle Tabloid opened up the door to our resident artist and pop culture specialist, the Culture Cast himself, Josie's Voice Coming When It's Over. And, you know, and it became a vehicle to me, and I was like, it just didn't seem like work. It's fun, and it's what I've been wanting to do for the longest. I always tell people I'm always late to the party, but whenever I show up, I turn it up. So that's just what it is.
Where did you draw inspiration from? You know, who are some of your heroes, some of the people that kind of gave you a blueprint to approach this? Because the beauty of podcasting is, you know, we draw inspiration from wherever we get you know, ideas from. And some people, they do more talking head, Larry King. Other people like to do a little bit more open table. But you're different in the sense that you have a variety of things that you're a fan of, and I actually am leading to exactly that. But the other thing is that you've created your own style out of it. So give us a little bit of background on, you know, who inspires you, and what inspiration do you draw from those particular people?
I've always been, it's funny because even as a kid, my mother said I've always been like a nosy kid, and I've always been able to hold conversations with people who were way older than me. And I would sit around while my mother would have parties or her friends were hanging out, and I'll be, 9, 10, 11 years old, having conversations with 30-year-olds. And it always captivated them that I was so able to comprehend what they were talking about. I was probably a little bit mature than I should have been, but also I was also very interested in what it was like to be an adult. And a lot of times too, I would watch early on, and it's hokey to say, but I would stay up late and watch Johnny Carson or Letterman. And I was always fascinated by people just going on there, especially the early Carsons. It was weird because like it was always like they were friends and they knew each other, and it just seemed so carefree. And it wasn't until later on that I was flicking the channels on the radio dial after listening to New York's Hot 97 for too long. It gives you a headache. I was listening to Howard Stern, and Stern was the guy that I was like, holy shit! Like this guy could make the local delivery man a celebrity. And I was always captivated by how he was able to do that. And I listened to the way he just spoke. He never spoke over the listener's head. It didn't seem like he was talking down to anybody. Well, he talked down to people, but not in that sense. But I was fascinated by that. And piece by piece, I started listening to other guys. I would listen to in the afternoons like Opie and Anthony later on. And even in sports, it was like the Dan Patricks, the Mike and the Mad Dogs. Like I would hear these guys, and I often said, I can do that. But you just never have that ability. It's funny because even to this day, my boys when I'm growing up, and they see what I'm doing now, and they hear the podcast, and they always go like, you've been doing this since you were younger. Like, it was because we were teenagers. You were always able to crack people without them even knowing that you were cracking them. You can break them down, and you'll make them at ease in a conversation, and you will do it quick. And I was just like, I guess I just found my outlet and my niche now where I can do it.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about Carson, Letterman, between those two, and I'm only doing this not to create a debate, but more so, who out of those two do you feel was the more competent interviewer? And I ask because some people have, and I feel it's a generational thing, especially because I watched old Carson, I watched Letterman. Then now, the new younger generation gets, Fallon, Seth Meyers. And as I watch all of them, I see that they drew inspiration from those guys. But there's always a debate about who was able to just break down a guest better. I feel that Carson was able to make it more entertaining, but Letterman was able to get more out of them.
Right. I could say the same. I could agree with it. But I also think that when it came to sharper, more edgier wit, I always enjoyed Letterman.
He was a bastard when he wanted to be.
yeah, exactly. Because Carson was very, he was more physical when he came to his expressions after someone made a risque kind of comment or some type of innuendo, and just his facial expression would just light up an audience. Where Letterman was very quick, sharp-tongued. He knew an exact quick retort to say right after, which I've always been keen to do as well. But when it came to, the groundbreaking of it as well, I always looked at Carson, and even Letterman would say that, he was the blueprint. He was the guy that laid out the everybody would say the Steve Allens or the earlier Ernie Kovacs kind of guys, but it was Carson that actually did it.
How do you feel about Leno?
Like a 77-year-old man right now.
No. Those nuances are part of the reason why we do this stuff. To get that nitty gritty. People want to know. Especially if someone is just starting out and they're listening to this to draw inspiration, they'll be like, oh man, maybe I need to watch. Maybe. Yeah, and this sounds just so weird. Maybe I need to YouTube some old Carson stuff.
I know. Let me tell you, the other day, and this is what I do. People ask me, have you seen this show? Have you seen this, these TV shows? Okay, so I'm really like, no, because a lot of times I'm either on YouTube or I'm on websites and I'm looking up older stuff. I'm looking at, stand-ups, even that. That's another venture that I'm looking to do soon. But that's another thing that's going at that. I'm looking at those as examples that not only that I can use, but I give it to my my co-host, Oski, for Maddie, and guys, check out this, watch this, and this is the way that we need to start relating and discussing stuff with not only with each other, but also with people we're interviewing. I said this is the kind of dialect, because I've always hated that point and click kind of conversation. Everything's copy and paste kind of.
Yeah, very generic.
Where you're from, it's always been so hokey for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I kind of, for this particular podcast, I like to do, kind of the origin story, the gear, then the hot seat, and then, the toy conversation comes in there at, piece by piece. That's why I like to call it, and you actually helped me coin it, some assembly required, because that way people understand. People understand, but. Well, it was funny because as you were saying that, I had asked you about Jay Leno. Jay Leno. How do you feel about Leno and his contributions? And do you feel that he was a guy that kind of borrowed too much at times? Because that's one person who, whenever he was on my screen, I'm like, oh, this guy. Where does he fit for you, especially in terms of you drawing inspiration? Did he bring anything to the table, or were you one of those people that was just not a fan of his either?
Not for me. I wasn't a fan of his. I mean, I read The Late Shift and I watched the movie as well. And the only thing that I can admire and take away from him was his hustle, his drive to get where he wanted to get to. And although it was cutthroat, he did a lot of backstabbing, especially him and his manager at the time did a lot of stuff that weren't very ethical to other individuals, but he went and he knew exactly what he wanted, and he went and got it. And then once he got it, he didn't want to let it go. One guy that I really wanted to see get that chair, and he got it for a couple of months, and they didn't let him ride, was Conan. I was a big Conan fan as well. I enjoyed watching Conan. I even watched Jay. I watched Dave once it came out at 11:30. Then I switched to Conan after. When Conan got it, it was like a great thing. Then, to see that it just left his hands the way it did, it's like it really, really put a real bad light, even though there was already on with Jake for me already, but it was real negative light after that shit. It was like, wow, what a real sleazebag he was for that.
I remember that. That was some real politicking at that point. And it's weird too, because when it was all said and done, Conan ended up carving out his own niche, which is crazy. He did a niche within a niche by doing, the traveling documentary stuff. I believe I went to a screening. Actually, it was weird when he did when he went to Cuba,
right?
And I was just blown away. And I said to myself, I'm like, this dude took the typical, I'm gonna sit in the chair and have XYZ celebrity come here and cut a couple of jokes and we'll laugh and that's it. And he turned it into something completely different. I mean, this is a guy that's embraced like Comic-Con and geek culture, and he does all this stuff. I mean, he's the only talk show host that has like 12 different pops based on different personas that he's been at Comic-Con.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and then this is a guy who he's Ivy League educated. He wrote for Saturday Night Live, and he was prepared to take over this role and wanted to do stuff that you didn't see much at late night at that 11:30 slot, and when Jay first came out, Jay had a tough time coming out as well. He wasn't slaying them. Hell, both he and Dave were getting slaughtered by Nightline, and then all of a sudden he gets that one interview with the woman, the prostitute, with Hugh Grant. He was with Hugh Grant, and that's what skyrocketed him. That's what took him over the place. And I felt really bad for Conan. I mean, to this day, I watch Conan whenever I get the chance to. I love Conan. I love what he has a bitch, and I love especially that he said the geek and stuff. He does stuff with video games and everything.
Yep.
So, and he seems to me, he always seems like a big kid. And that's another thing too. That he always seems like smart. Another one that's very witty, very sharp tongue, but he seems like he's just a big kid. And so that's a guy that's a shame that never really got the opportunity. But hey, it's already been 10, 12 years that he's been on TBS and still there.
Yeah, he's actually, strangely enough, he's switching his show, I believe, to a half-hour format.
I always tell people that sometimes an hour for certain shows could be
it'll drag.
Tedious. Yeah.
What do you think of the new guys?
A good format for him.
What do you think of the new guys?
I like Fallon. I've always liked Fallon. Fallon's another kid he's another one that's like a big kid. He's all right. He's really he's exciting. He's in touch with pop culture, and it was just weird because that 11:30 slot used to be really for the elderly. That old demo, the 45 to 80-year-olds who are going to sleep, and now you're finding that kids are. That's the day we live in.
Dude, how the hell am I watching Fallon? I'm like, I never watched any of this stuff, and I'll end up watching like a bit of his. There's always a bit of his that I end up liking, and I end up watching it.
Yeah, it also helps that he's a wrestling fan too, so he's always having like WWE.
Yep, absolutely.
There as well. But and I feel, and the other thing is with Kimmel as well. Kimmel is a kid that I find him to be, although Colbert is supposed to be the elder statesman. These days, I find that Kimmel is just a little. He's coming off a little bit more older.
Absolutely,
he's like the elder statesman because he's been doing it for so long.
And he touches a lot of real stuff. Like sometimes he'll just open a show real dry about something that just happened in the news. Like he has no problem, and that's something I feel he's very strong with. Is that he'll open it up, and let's say there's a mass shooting or something terrible. He'll open up. It won't be no laugh track. No, he'll be like, listen. Half an hour ago, this and this and this happened. It sucks. We're going to cut some jokes. We're going to have a few laughs, try to lighten the mood, but let's remember this and this and this happened. And dude, without fail,
Yeah, it reminds me of my roommate, aka my mother. She she DVRs both of them. She'll watch Colbert, and then she'll watch Kimmel. And it's always, you could always be grateful to having technology this day about doing they able to do this, because you couldn't do it back in the days. You had to either watch one or the other, and it's like now nobody can really complain. Everybody can say, oh, ratings of this, ratings of that. People are watching you in doses anyway now. They're watching you, on going viral. You're
YouTubeable bits.
YouTubeable. Like, it's like you're being seen. You're good.
Yep. It's interesting because that takes us into the aspect of you getting into podcasting. It's crazy how when you and I were growing up, it's like, you remember the commercials, Apex Technical School, and you'd have to go you'd have to go and if you want to be a sound engineer, or Boricua College, like, all the stuff. And now it's like you watch a couple of videos, you read a couple of articles, boom, 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 and you're off to the races. I mean, we went from having to learn a whole bunch of complex stuff to plug in a USB microphone and hit record. I mean, there's free software out there. There's ways to learn. It's crazy because when you started doing it, I was just like, and you were a quick study. It was like, I'm like, all right, Jay, this is what you do with this and this and this. And before you know it, you were cutting up your own shows, and you were doing edits, and it's become tremendous. I mean, when you started, if I remember correctly, you were recording with Audacity, right?
Right.
Yeah, and just a regular microphone, a pretty, I think it was a pretty early bare bones mixer to start, and you were just cranking them out, doing. Jay started actually doing the Regular Season Sportscast as the first one, and you took to it, man, like a fish in water.
Oh, it's too funny. I remember sitting there, and I was working with two laptops.
Yep.
People wiring everything together. And I would have to do this a couple of times where I had to lug everything to my co-host at the time to his place, and then have to rewire everything again, put things together. And the first episodes were just so bad. I even go back and I laugh at it, to where we've come to now with how Turnbuckle Tabloid and Call Me When It's Over, and TRS is not how it's getting cranked out. Especially, and thanks to you with the rig that was hooked up here. It's funny because now it goes to, before I didn't really know about how to do where the levels were at, sound checking. If I wanted to do a bit, how was I going to be able to do an overlay of my voice with this music that's in the background? How can I chop up? It took, and which I think a lot of people don't understand, that it's work. Like, it really is work to sit down, take a couple of hours from your day. You don't have to be in front of the TV watching whatever anime is on. If you really want to do this, you got to sit down and get on the tools and learn how to, chop through this. And, there was times I would click and go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. And I'll click. And I go, oh, okay, this is making it easy. And I'm like, oh, all right. And, you got to figure out, if you're going to really want to do this, that you got to hone it in and knuckle down and get on it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger things. And with Jay went from, as I was saying, he started with just a regular setup. Now he essentially has his own podcast studio in his place. And the crazy thing is that now people come over to record with you.
Oh yeah. Now they, because they see the sweet setup. It's funny because we would go live on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever the case may be, and people would just see the rig, like not even the rig now, my early setup. And someone made a comment, and it was like, "Oh, you guys are cheap." And then that following week, everything went up with the new stuff and everything, and no one said anything. Everybody was just quiet.
Crickets.
And I was like, "Thanks for inspiring us." And I just left it like that. But even so, like you said, they all come, they see what it is, and they know now. It's like, okay, I think we start taking these guys a little bit more serious now. And man, it's been a long time coming.
Yep. I mean, it's important because you went from using Audacity, then you started using Hindenburg Journalists, which it's crazy. A lot of people sleep on that because everybody gets into this, and you and I talked about this at length with podcasting about how, listen, you got to get past that 10 episode hump, and then what time it is. And your skill level, you graduated from doing Audacity to doing Hindenburg, and I believe you even got your daughter involved, like learning this stuff too, right?
Yeah. So I'm slowly but surely I'm getting her involved in it. Like I told her, because now she's opening up, and she wants to do a little bit more theater stuff for her as well. I guess she wants to follow in daddy's footsteps in some weird way.
Of course,
she wants to do it. I told her, I said, I could see you in the next year or so bringing your friends over and you guys getting on YouTube and starting to get on to do some of this stuff. And she smiled and she gave me a look like, yeah, I think I can do this as well. But it's funny you bring up Audacity, because I remember the troubles we used to have early on with Audacity.
Yep.
We'll have, files were corrupted and things like that. And I was like, crap, if only like this thing would update. I was like, it's just stayed the same.
Yeah.
So you put me on to Hindenburg, and that was an eye opener. That program was like, oh, thank you.
Well,
thank you.
The thing is, some people, when they get into this, man, and this is the other thing too, they put their money in the wrong place. Right. let me get $250 microphones, and let me get the $150 to $300 mixer, and it's like, listen, that all of that goes out the window if you can't tell a story and you can't entertain. And that's one thing that you were perfectly comfortable with when I told you, I'm like, listen, it's going to start off slow. You got to gain some traction. And then before you know it, you'll have your own audience. And when you don't put stuff out, they'll be the ones checking you because they actually believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny because I was speaking to someone who's podcasting as well. He's been doing it as long as I have. And he was still on Audacity for a while. And, Audacity they just had an update probably like the last 9 months ago, something like that. And it runs better. But he, before he was having the same troubles. I thought, dude, you've been doing this for a minute, man. And you got to try this program. This is what help you out much. You're not going to have the same problems. And he started using it. He's like, yo, Jay, good looking out. He's like, yo, it's great. I don't have that issue anymore. And I think, like you said, it takes time, and people don't understand the grind. And Josie's boy always states it. It's about the journey, about the progress. People want to have that quick fame, and it doesn't work that way. So, sometimes getting that 15 minutes of fame could go away as fast as you got it. I even to this day, even when I talk to Maddie about everything, I said, dude, I love chipping away because it's like you're building the bigger masterpiece. It's like the David of podcasting. You're about to make a big statue that nobody thought you can do. So I think you gotta put in that work.
How do you prep for your shows? There are people that they do pen and paper. I use me personally. I use Microsoft OneNote or my phone. Walk us through your show prep process. Like, what goes into making a Turnbuckle Tabloid or a TRSS episode?
I remember I showed that a few times. I had a notebook, and anything that I saw on social media or I'm watching the news or something, I would jot down in this notebook. And it became a thing to where I had like 3 books already filled by like a year.
Wow.
And I still kept it for sentimental value, but it was just a thing to where it just became too much for me. Then what happened was I started just taking notes on my phone, and whatever I used or didn't really need, I was just deleting it out the way. So these days, it's especially for Turnbuckle Tabloid, we have our segment on Wrestling Rundown. That's the part in which Maddie takes over. That's the host part. I tell him, I always say before, I'm the Howard Stern to my Robin Quivers, and that's where I get that from. That's his segment, and I just ride along with him. So he's in charge of keeping notes. And early on, it was like, Maddie, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it wasn't until he finally started listening, he was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I was like, yeah, this is why he did. So that's what his prep is. As for anything else that we do for the show, I just do tons of research. If I see a topic, like this week's topic was, is the Bullet Club over?
Yep.
You know, that is, and that associates with the importance of factions in wrestling. So I just did, you know, a lot of research of where avenues of factions have come and gone, where sales, or, you know, where the big sales can be at, and such like that. It's all about taking notes, email. Sometimes I even email myself for a reminder.
Nice.
Or I even message myself as a reminder, and I put it on the calendar. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that. And I tell, you know, and of course I have to tell Oski that this is what it is that we need to do. I'm also impressed by Josie's boy. He comes in and he has his book. He has his organizer. And it's funny because he'll have tons of notes, and usually he's ready to go and rip, and he won't even go through half of it because he'll take it to such another place, which you got to admire that a lot of people can't do.
Yep.
That he'll look at his book at the end of the show and go, "Oh shit, I didn't even get to do this." But that's what you're supposed to do. You just can't sit there and go, "Well, this week we're going to be talking about what you call it, racks in wrestling. What do you call a ring rack?" Like you gotta do the research. You gotta put it down on paper or wherever it is that you can remember that you can never get it from.
The you know, it's interesting you mentioned that with wrestling in particular. You know, there's so many, you know, the dirt sheets, everything else. It's always interesting though, because we all have our sources. So, you know, as a little hat tip, who are your favorite sources? Who do you see yourself going to when you want to get real information? You know, a lot of people always like to talk about, even though they clown him sometimes, you know, Dave Meltzer being on ahead of the game with that.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm usually I can't say.
No, but I bring him up because oddly enough, you know, for every swing and a miss that he has, sometimes he does have that inside track. So, you know, to you know, add a little weight to the interview. You know, who do you like to reference? Who do you like to visit? You know, are you a you know, some people like Raja WWF or 411 or. I
used to It's funny because Meltzer always said I can't stand him, but you go to him anyway, because with me it's always you know, I take it as a counterpunch. I can always take what he says and then go here.
Yep.
I used to go, you know, Wrestling Inc. used to be my big thing. Wrestling Inc. I used to write.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I would write to them emails when I used to write for when I would write for RageWorks. I would send him links to our site, and I'd also send him, you know, some insight that I would know about House of Glory with Red and my stuff here and there, and any other promotion that I go to, and you know, I would just send him stuff to, you know, just give him some heads up of what's going on, especially out here, because in the New York City area, you know, the indie scene wasn't really getting too much love at that time a few years ago. You know?
I feel it's still kind of not. Like, there's not a de facto New York based indie hub, you know?
Yeah, it's not, but it's also things to where it's coming little by little. Everybody started to believe that they can have their own promotion or their own fed, and you start seeing the rises and the falls at the same time. But
yep, the
outlet of it was never. Nobody really understood to where you're going to get the info from, where you're going to get the news from. So you have like Wrestling and you have Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I picked up a Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine the other day just because they had the top 500 wrestlers.
Yep.
The PWI 500. I picked it up, and sometimes I'll still do it. And the one thing that I don't like doing on Turnbuckle Tabloid is I hate to report rumors. I don't really like doing rumors. Especially like when they're really outlandish. Whenever, you know, Matty will do the news and he'll put a rumor up there. I even made up a character so that he could be like a gossip columnist for it, because I'm not a rumor guy. I like to be at least something that's more mainline to a possibility rather than just you know, the Stephanie McMahon says that she'll get into the ring one more time. I'm not. No, I like stuff that it's hopefully concrete.
You like factual, actual.
Yeah, like I like to do that. Like anything else is just like, come on, are you serious? Let's be for real. Like, who didn't want this? But it's so funny to talk about, though.
What's you know, the genesis of Turnbuckle Tabloid came off the heels of the Regular Season Sportscast, and the funny thing with TRSS was, you know, it got you to the dance, but you've taken your foot off the gas because Turnbuckle Tabloid's become it kind of became your staple, your standby show. Like originally it used to be like, oh, Jay host of TRSS. Now it's Jay host of Turnbuckle Tabloid and TRSS. How, where was that mindset shift for you where Turnbuckle Tabloid became your marquee show after, even though TRSS brought you to the dance?
It's funny because I'm still in the process of trying to figure out, because I still want to keep TRSS around. I want to keep the regular season around, but it's so tough to talk sports without someone else.
Yep, you need a second mic.
Yeah, you need to have that other opinion. That's why a lot of sports shows you see on TV, like you don't see, the only person like you'll see is like Jim Rome. He'll do his own thing. But even these days, like Cowherd, he has a female there, or you see Shannon Sharp with Skip Bayless. Like you got to have that kind of two-man, three-man kind of rotation. Whereas with Turnbuckle Tabloid, to be honest, like I was doing it on TRSS by myself. So talking wrestling by yourself, it's fine.
Yep.
But sports is different, and I really want to try to find something to do with TRSS. I have not let it go. I want to do something with it. I haven't figured out what I want to do more with it yet. But with Turnbuckle Tabloid, it became a thing because, thanks to you, unfortunately, when my take went to bed, you told me that, hey, this is the opportunity. Since you've been doing it on it, you can make your own separate entity. And I was like, great. I never really wanted to do it as a host. I always wanted to be like the producer. I wanted to be in the background. I actually wanted two other individuals to do it. And when I was testing people out, it just didn't seem right. Like the chemistry wasn't there, or they really didn't know how to bounce off each other, or where they wanted the show to go. Where in my head I was like, I might as well just do this. And lucky for me, Maddie's been around. I haven't gotten rid of this white boy for the longest. He's still around, and he makes the demo even better because it's such a different spectrum.
Right.
And I'm the old head. I've been watching wrestling since the 70s and 80s, and he's fresh out of the end of the Attitude Era to the PG era. He's been the pulse of Hattie. He's been to Ring of Honor shows and such like that. So it's two different opinions. Where I knew that Turnbuckle Tabloid was going to be asked, I'm going to have to focus on this, was two things: being recognized at wrestling shows a lot more, and once you started really focusing and telling me the numbers, and I started seeing the numbers on Facebook and on Instagram and on all over the other places, where I'm like, okay, I think we're doing something different here that a lot of other podcasts aren't doing, and I think people are starting to gravitate to it.
Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack, man. We were talking about this a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. How the wrestling podcasting landscape is so vast, and it's weird because it has I almost feel there's like a hierarchy, because you got the wrestlers who became podcasters who, to dethrone those guys, you got to be on a different level. Then you got the veterans of the game who got the inside track, and then you got the guys that are on the come up that are just consistently just knocking it out of the park. Do you listen to, guys like Jim Ross or Jericho or those guys, or do you feel that since you already do a wrestling podcast, you don't want it to influence what you do?
I used to, I would listen to Jericho, Talk is Jericho. I will listen to Ross, and sometimes I do, I'll pick it up sometimes here and there, depending on what I'm doing at the moment, or I will listen to Wrestling Inc. has their own. It's just that, like I said, I don't like listening to a lot of other guys because I don't want to pick up what they're doing in some cases. I don't want to feel like I'm going to be picking up their cadence or something like that. I focus on what we do here, and like you said, with such a large podcasting audience for wrestling, I don't really worry about that too much either these days. I used to, because I was like, these guys, they're just doing it because we're doing it. But I don't worry about it too much anymore, because a lot of them, they started and then they realized that it's work. And all of a sudden they just started slowly fading away. Like, hey, when's the last time you did the podcast? I'm like, wow, man, I haven't done it in months. It's like, oh, when you guys do yours? I'm like, yeah, we're on episode 87. We'll be 2 years in the mix in March. Like, and I think that's the other thing too, that people start looking. I make it an importance to put the episode number on every posting that I do, because I want people to see, yeah, this has been every week.
Yep.
Every fucking week we've been here.
The other thing also is, you've hit triple digits with the Regular Season Sportscast. You're about to hit triple digits with Turnbuckle Tabloid. Josie's boy with Call Me When It's Over, he hit triple digits. How does it feel hitting those milestones for you? I mean, anybody can ask me, and I've had my own take on it, but for you, I've been watching it every step of the way. And when you hit those milestones, the sense of pride I see from you, because it's like, I made 25, I made 50, I broke 75. Like, talk us through that a little bit from your perspective.
What do you see what I do? I make specials. I do like, actually I take it from, we talked about talk shows. I do like talk shows you do, years ago, where they do their special editions, or their congratulatory episodes, where I do best ofs and stuff like that. And I take that, once again, from the Carsons or the Lettermans or the Sterns, that where when we were about to hit that milestone, I would chop up the best interviews, the best bits, the best thing that we've done, and like during that same week, I would send it to you, and here, throw this out as the best stuff. And it's just basically, congratulating not only me, but us as a family at RageWorks, because it's one of those things to where we all did it. Although I'm in the studio talking for 2 hours every week, chopping it up, trying to be humorous, trying to be thought provoking, trying to be opinionated, but it's all of us doing it because you're in production. You're out there putting the work as we are. You're also doing your thing, and Josie's boy, the same thing. I remember Josie's boy when he was up to his 100. He's like, I don't think it was a big thing, but when it did happen, you saw it in his face on that episode that It was like a swell.
He was hype.
Holy shit, yeah! Like, I actually made 100. It's crazy. So it is a big thing. It's a big thing, and I'm really excited. I want to do. I want to do something for Turnbuckle Tabloid, and it's funny because around that time it's going to be WrestleMania, like around that time. So It should be like something big that goes off around that frame.
It's funny because with you, especially the way you've approached this, you look at where not only the fact that you've grown, but you've also taught and passed on the skills. Like your co-host Matt. I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now, he talks with you and reaches out and comes back to wanting to do something for himself, like extra. Like, I remember when you put him on with the Mets podcast, and I was like, wow, this kid's really about the Mets. Like, I was, it impressed me because, for somebody so young, like, you got to eat, sleep, and breathe sports at that age for you to become that passionate about it. And I was like, wow, this kid's really about it, and the fact that you've kind of he's become your Padawan, your Obi-Wan in this situation, and watching him grow. How does it feel? You're teaching essentially a newer generation of podcasters, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I like when you this was last year or the year before, you had a rant on Turnbuckle Tabloid, like, yo, I'm the father of a bunch of these guys out there putting out shows.
It's true though, because like all of a sudden I seen a lot of these kids and a lot of these guys doing podcasts, or I see them make a post like, what do you guys think if I do a podcast? And I'm like, wow, you've had all this time. Then you realize that someone's already been 45, 46 episodes in. Now you want to do something?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you were on my podcast recently, and now all of a sudden you want to do your own? I find it's funny because as cliche as it is, we're all still learning regardless.
Yep.
And these days, the best part of the learning on Turnbuckle Tabloid has been when I rip Maddie a new asshole on air, because when he brings up a new story that he hasn't done his research on, or he's not prepared, and I rip him one on there, they'll look back and go, wow, that's fucked up. But it's a process to where I say, at the end of the day, this is gonna remind you of how important this is to us. Like, I have to, if I do it off mic, it's gonna be worse.
Yep.
Because I'm just gonna browbeat you. At least here, the mic is on. If I do it on live, or we're on the air on the podcast, at least I'm conscious enough to say, you know what, I'll reel it back a little bit, because I don't want to really embarrass you too much.
Right.
But off the mic, I'll be pissed, because I would sit there and I would have to go, dude, this is this is not what it is. And the same could be for me, because I know there's been times that I might have said something, numerous times I might have said something that wouldn't favor to anybody's personality or their opinion. And I had to check myself, like, you know what, you're right. My fault. Maybe I should have been a little bit more sensitive there. But at the end of the day, to me, it's about the best thing about podcasting, which is we're kicked down to, is just the free form of it. We have our restrictions here and there, but it's not as restrictive as if we were on terrestrial radio or satellite. We are so free to do what we do, and I try to explain that to all these guys. Especially when I'm interviewing somebody, or on something, they get nervous and they pull back. I say, listen, don't worry about it. Say what you need to feel, and let me take you the right way, and we'll go from there. You don't have to, be too cautious about anything. And I'm glad to see that a lot of people have been able to walk with us that way, and I'm glad to see that people have been able to learn from whatever I can share.
Oh, I mean, that's what I mean. You did it with Matt. You did it with Josie's boy when you put him on, and I was like, wow, I said to myself, I'm like, yo, where did Jay find this kid? I'm like, this dude gets it. And it was crazy, because I remember we met for dinner. You're like, all right, you can meet him. This is what he's pitching. And I'm like, all right, man, like let's try it, and I said it not because, he had your endorsement, but because I said to myself, what can we do with and I like the term he uses, with a culture cast. I'm like, how can a culture cast fit in to what we do here? And as I heard it and I saw that, we all shared a lot of similar interests, I'm like, I get it. I get it, and I get where it's coming from, and I'm like, and I get why it's needed. And he's ran with it, into the triple digits, and that's another guy that, again, you passed your skills on, and you found a diamond in the rough, you put some pressure on the coal, and you got a gem out of there that's been killing it,
the best thing about him has been also his consistency. This is a guy who's he goes into work and he tells them, listen, I can't work this day because I have something to do. And it's known that this is he's always had it that his art is first, and he enjoys doing the podcast, the Culture Cast, Kobe Winslow. He enjoys it, but it's become a thing now that it's becoming bigger than what he really thought it was going to be. He didn't expect that that it probably would be so watched or listened to by others, even in his circle, because even he is, he even shouted on his shows. Yeah, I see a lot of you guys. All of a sudden, you're podcasters now, huh? Wonder where that came from. You know what I mean? And that's another thing too, and this is where I also have to say, and I have to thank you for that as well, because you talk about inspirations. When we first got connected, and I heard my take, and we finally met. I saw that. I said, "This is him. This is the guy who does the podcast." I said, "This guy, you sound so seasoned. Like you've been, like you sound like an old soul." And I come to find out that I'm older than you, but yet you still have that range. And we came from, we're cut from the same cloth with different scissors and stuff.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm I'm like, oh, definitely. I said, we're definitely meant to be, because you're a guy who people didn't think that you were who you were. Like you seemed like you could have been this gigantic 6'8" burly man who speaks away. And when they see you, it's like, holy shit. Yep. And I admire that, because when I would listen to my take and I saw, and I would listen to how you were able to transition from one subject to the next so easily. You were bringing callers, you had interviews and stuff like that. And I was like, this fucker's younger than me and he's doing this shit. I can do this shit.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, it was crazy, because back then, that was the full 3-hour slot until I broke it up into the 2 days of shows. And it's, I look back on that, and that was, I like to call that the Iron Man years, because that's when I was like, I'm doing this show from 11 to 2 plus calls and fully structuring it, and definitely kudos to Slick, who was, working the boards at the time, and I was really trying to run it like a full on show, like it was full on screen the calls, who's coming on, this person's coming on at this time, here's the bit. Like dude, I was trying to structure a full on production. Like I was trying to do Stern my own way. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I'm gonna do 3 hours. We're gonna talk about this, this, and this, and this, and this. Like I used Microsoft OneNote to do all my prep work, and it would be, by the time Wednesday nights when I was doing it rolled around, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays. For MMA and wrestling alone, there'd be, 5,000 letters of notes, 5,000 words of notes, just of stuff. And, to give you some context, when you were talking about, Josie's boy not using a fraction of it, that was me. I'd be like, didn't talk about this. Didn't talk about this. This ran a little long. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I apologize, because a lot of times when I would do the wrestling segment, it went way longer than it should.
It did, but but we were it did. But you know what? We were vibing, and that worked, because it was funny. The audience was so segmented, and they would all get pissed off at each other. Like, man, he's talking too much about wrestling. We can't hear about the game stuff, or he's talking about too much MMA. We can't hear about. And then when I broke it up into 2 days, I'm like, listen, it can't get any more simpler than that. And then, those audiences started to bleed over, and the wrestling guys started watching MMA, the MMA guys started watching wrestling, and then that kind of made the transition easier. And, even with you, as you notice, you see the parallels between MMA and wrestling now. It's just so apparent.
It was also a thing too early on, I had, you always had to do the time frame because of what we were given for memory at the time. Now that we have a little bit more now, it was always a timetable that I tried to always hit.
Yep.
And from time to time, you're like, you went over here and over there, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just that this was so good, and it's become a thing now to these days, to where, especially when it comes to the interviews. This week we just had a great interview with Pinky Sanchez, Indie Star, and he there was so much that I wanted to open up with and just keep going on the road with. And I was like, shit, I could have talked to him for 2 hours. I was like, I got to cut him off sometime. But I said, you know what, Peggy, I'm going to bring you back. Because there's so much more we got to do. And you're still, like I said, we're still learning. But at this time, to where we at now, I think we're at that precipice of where all of us in RageWorks is supposed to be at. And I think that door is knocking.
How funny is it though? Like we used to talk about the time, because I remember, and this is, giving people inside track. Our shows originally were hosted on Libsyn, and, even though I had the highest paid tier on Libsyn, they still had a cap, it was like whatever the sizing was. And even on the highest tier, cause we were all doing shows, I'm like, this isn't enough. And then, we made the jump, again, a little behind the curtain, we made the jump to Spreaker. And as soon as I said, no memory limits, it's funny, because I said that, and you in particular, it shows, and I'm being completely honest, your discipline as a broadcaster, because you didn't run with it and say, no memory limits, let's just crank it up and let them go where they go. You were still beholden to, it's like the kid touching the hot stove. Like I notice when I'm editing, when you hit that 90-minute mark, you start kind of just wanting to wind down. and it's in your DNA now. Like when you go long, it works because it's appropriate for the guest you have or the topics of discussion or if it's a busy news week. But man, like it's funny just hearing you winding it down and leading people to the finish line. It's tremendous. And I just say to myself, look at that. All that badgering him about time. It's like he ended up it stuck on its own.
Overrun.
Yeah, the overrun, literally.
The overrun. No, and I always have to say I have to look at Josie's boy because he hits his mark every week.
He don't play.
Every week. He hits his mark every week, and he'll time check me. He'll time stamp me. He'll go, how much I got left? Got 15. All right, good. And he'll find a way to go into and he doesn't even have to do a check down at 5-minute mark. He already knows that it's close. There's not even a clock. He already knows. Bam. And we're always around that same time, 1:20 all the time.
Yep.
I try to do that these days now because I've learned that I don't want to leave everything on the table when it comes to certain interviews.
No, don't.
And a lot of guys, and a lot of guys want to come back. Guys, and that's just why numerous times I have, different interviews with same individuals because, for example, Brian Excel from House of Glory, I've had numerous interviews with him because I've taught him in different stages of his career.
Yep. And
it's broadened the whole spectrum of what his career and the promotion has done. I've also done it with other owners and other wrestlers, and you can't give Thanksgiving every day to everybody.
No.
You gotta break it down to them.
And
as much as I want to talk shit with them, I gotta cut it down.
And even if you do long episodes, you can always make them 2-parters and just chime in. You could do the whole. Yeah. You could record for 3 hours, come in at the 90-minute mark, and be like, all right, this is gonna wrap up this section of the interview. Join us next week for episode blah, 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 and you'll get to hear part 2. Like but the funny thing is that you make it, and this is something I've caught on as I edited a lot of your stuff. You always make it that they're hyped to come back for a second go around, which is good because even though you can get the whole thing, if you wanted to, and like you were saying, you could sit down and boom, 3 hours and then, it is what it is. But I like, and that just shows your growth as a host, that these guys, they'll be like, yo, I'm coming through, or yo, when can I come back, or yo, when can we record? It's great to see, man.
Yeah, and if they come in and they see they see what the setup that we have, even early on, they're like, oh, you guys are really doing it from here. Like, my dinner table is not even a dinner table anymore. It's just the studio. And when I'm able to drop sound effects from Jingle Palette and just be able to work off of even sometimes I'm running Audacity and Hindenburg at the same time just to make sure it's backing up each other. People see they look over the shoulder and they look and go, oh shit, like this is no rinky dink stuff you got going on here. Like you're doing it. I said, yeah, this is what we do here.
Yep.
I just want to keep cranking out quality stuff and stuff that people would turn around and like, yo, you know what? Those guys are entertaining. And that's exactly what it is. Because I've heard, like you said, like, when it comes to other wrestling shows, it's like, it's so cut and paste and just so, I don't like really talking about the same thing and sounding the same. I enjoy having individuals have different opinions about stuff. And that's what too many yes men on certain media outlets.
Yeah, we can't have that. Definitely can't. Before we jump into the hot seat, I wanted to ask in this journey that you've had with all these shows, who has been your favorite interview to date?
Wow, it's funny because a lot of them that we've had was we've had some that we've actually ambushed. We've got certain phone numbers and we've got interviews that way, which has been always the funniest ones. The ones that we did that were like that was I know actually the Homicide one I got was really cool because Homicide was really good for me because we actually grew up in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, you had that local connection.
Right. We didn't know each other, but I knew of him because of neighborhood, and he wrestled on the guy who lived in my building, and we went to high school together and didn't know it. And it was like this real bonding thing. It was like, oh shit, such and such too, and it was real cool. He was one of the good ones, but there was also the ones that we we did the ambush. And one of my favorite ones that we did was with from Grimm's Toy Show, Tommy Salami.
Oh, geez.
And the best part was that we had his number, and we heard a rumor that he was charging people for interviews. We heard a rumor that he was charging about $75 to $100 to do interviews.
Jeez.
So we got the number, and if you listen to the episode, I'm setting him up for an interview, and I guess he's on a car ride home. But for the next 20 minutes, I'm interviewing him while I'm setting up for an interview. I was like, before I let you go, how'd you get into wrestling? And he'll tell me how to get it. Oh, I'm sorry, I know you're busy, but before that, how did you meet Grim? Like, how did that? And it became the fucking interview.
That's hilarious.
And at the end, we got approval for it because I couldn't just put it out there like that. And he gave approval. He's like, "You guys are hilarious. How did you guys do that?" And we just looked at each other, and I was like, "I don't even know how the fuck I did
that." It's crazy that the ambush interviews. And obviously we gotta take the good with the bad to teach the listeners. Have you in the span of the two shows, how many difficult interviews have you had where you've said to yourself, I can't have this guest back? You don't obviously not naming names, but how many do you feel are definitely on your list? Like, nope, not doing that again.
And it's always the ones that you had your highest expectations for.
Yep, I hear that.
And you're just like, oh, really? There's times that Maddie will turn to me and he'll go, yo, why don't we get on such and such? And I go, nope, nah, that's all right. We're good. that one time was enough. And how arrogant it is, this hokey doke dinner table studio that I have here, that we have in here, that we actually turn around and we could like deny guests. Like how
sometimes
is that?
When that happens, whenever you say that to yourself, sometimes you got to remember, sometimes you got to fire your customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you got to fire them.
And my whole aspect is that I'm always telling them, I said, listen, sometimes you got to pour syrup on shit and make it pancakes. And I've had times where it's almost like I've gone down that road and just 10 minutes in the interview, I'm like, I'm ready to wrap this shit up. Like, damn. But luckily, it hasn't been that much. It's probably been a handful that we have.
Nice, a handful works. All right, so we've got a little bit of Jay's origin story. We're gonna jump into the hot seat. Just a couple rapid fire questions. No pressure with this stuff. What are 3 mobile apps you can't live without? Because I know you're a big mobile user.
Mobile apps. I've been one of them is YouTube. I've been using YouTube Premium.
Really? YouTube Red? Are you paying?
The YouTube Red, but now it's the Premium because apparently now I have a family that has to use the same thing. So, and it's good because if you use YouTube Red and YouTube Premium, you can cut your phone off and it still works.
Wow!
When the screen goes, when it goes to dim, when it turns itself off, you can still listen to it. And you also get since I have an Android, I also get Google Music Play for free.
Nice.
But I have my plethora of individuals because it gives you because I have the $15 a month plan.
Right.
So I have like 6 people on there, and it's good because the one thing that they'll tell me is that's the best thing you ever gave me, man.
Oh my!
I don't have to waste my battery. Oh man, I love it. I can cut the phone, I can cut the demo off, and I can still listen to it. I can be on another app and I can still listen to it. So that's been the great thing. Of course, Facebook has been. I found that Facebook for me is not because I'm using it for myself.
Right.
I'm using it for the show.
Yep.
I find that I hardly ever post stuff about me as much anymore. Everything is more about show related or the genre related, be it for TRSS or for Turnbuckle Tabloid, all that. So that's where I cipher through and I see where I can find information for the listeners and stuff. And I guess I could go hand in hand with Instagram. And and I guess that any news apps that I have, really, that's what I've been using for these.
You were saying you use.
I don't really use like wrestling apps. Like I don't use like wrestling apps or sports apps. Really, I just go directly to go to news apps.
Huh? Okay. Like CNN, like CNN's own app and stuff like that.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like because I find that when it comes to like wrestling apps and they send you news and stuff like that, like the Pro Wrestling Torch, a lot of that stuff is it's people sending in information like I used to. So a lot of that is not really like solid news stories, and there's no solid source behind it. So I just whenever I see, I always said if it's on TMZ, like if somebody dies and it's on TMZ, that person's dead. It's verified. And when I was a kid, I always used to say, if it's on the Star, it's on the Inquirer, then the story's true.
Man,
I always put it together.
I remember, my mom growing up, man, like 10-10 Wins was like the soundtrack of my life. And,
right.
Being from New York, you know that if it drops on 10-10 Wins, it's real. Immediately,
exactly, yeah.
The minute
it's going down.
The minute it's there, it's like, oh, yep. Like I remember, the cardinal from St. Patrick's Cathedral that passed away. He was John Cardinal O'Connor. He was Cardinal O'Connor,
yeah.
And I remember that. And my mom, she wasn't a big church going person, but she knew the deal immediately. As soon as we got home, TV went on, and then forget it. In the modern era when we had Time Warner and it was New York One. New York One was the soundtrack in my house. Just New York One playing for hours on end. The same news stories. I knew all the anchors by name at this point.
Right.
It's insane. But yeah, man, like we've, there's so many different ways to get the news. Like news breaks faster on Twitter than it does on television.
No, it's true. And I think this is why, not to get political or anything, just for a quick thing. This is why we have the individual that we have in power now, because I've been telling individuals for the longest. I said, he's our social media president. This is what we were leading down to. You guys didn't see this coming?
The dude leveraged. He leveraged. But I always tell people, we always talk about using the machine to meet our ends. That dude leveraged the machine to get into office. You know what I mean? Like that's
exactly.
Like, dude, and to your point, not to even get political, but dude, how did you get into office leveraging Facebook? Like, dude, like they're still uncovering like, oh, this company was buying ads on Facebook and doing it. It's insane. Like even now, like I use Facebook, and it's funny you said about not using it for the brand. Like that's how my Facebook was for forever. It was for the brand until, recently. But
right.
It was always for the brand, and that's how I use it. It's funny because everybody lives and dies on a lot of these platforms, and it's like, listen, if your claim to fame is being built off of somebody else's work, like a Facebook or an Instagram, and that goes away, that means you become irrelevant. Like if you can't coexist outside of that platform, it's just tougher for you as an individual. And it's funny, you see, social media influencers, all these, and I say that with quotes, because it's like, if that medium didn't exist, you'd have no influence,
Yeah. And I also tell people, especially when I didn't have the podcast, I would share my opinion on certain, games or whatever wrestling event was going on and such. And then sometimes I would go on a wrestling group and I'll just make my comments on my witty, my witty opinion or views of what occurred. And these days I go, you want that? Download the episode. Stream the episode.
It.
That's what you need to hear. You don't have to share it anymore. Like, people will send me stuff these days and they'll tag me and like, Jay, what you think thought about this? I'll be like,
check it out next week.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if you want to hear it, what it is, download such and such. Like, that's where I pretty much am with it now.
You were saying that you use an Android device. What phone are you using?
Now I'm on the S7. I'm looking to possibly step up to the Note, but I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I was thinking about going for the 9, but I'm not quite sure whether or not.
The Note is a more powerful phone, dude. Like and this is coming from an old Note user, dude. I used the Note from 1 up till 7 when it started blowing up, and then I made the jump to Apple. But man, if you talk about productivity, like how you talk about taking notes, man, that pen and that note taking app, dude, man.
Yeah, I had the note. I had the note 4. The last note I had was a 4, and I loved that. I love that phone. There's an app that Maddie was telling me about, and I think it would be great to use on the note. He says it's called Shadow. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not. I usually use Google Keep. Like, that's Google's note-taking app, Google Keep.
No, with this app, he's telling me that it's basically an app that can replicate what's going on your desktop.
Oh, like a mirroring app. I know that Samsung has something built in.
Right, yeah.
Samsung has something built in that they make. It's an app that you download. I used to use it, and you would mirror the phone. It wouldn't mirror your computer, but it would mirror the phone on your desktop.
Oh, okay. So, because he was telling me there's one that's like that. So I might have to look into. I want to look into possibly doing something like that, because there's times that, for instance, it's like you tell me, that something's not in a Dropbox, or I forget, or it's whatever the case. Like, I could automatically go on the phone and do it.
Right.
So I might look into. I might have to see. We should look into see what that's about, how that works as well. You always send me all the cool like apps and shit. Anyway,
I try to.
Yeah.
The next one is what's one website or destination you recommend to people often? Besides Rageworks.
The porn ones that I use. Besides the porn ones.
Yes, besides that.
Besides those. What do I go to? Since I since I'm a gamer as well, I'm always looking to gaming sites. I'm into those.
Okay.
I don't really have one in particular that I go to for certain things. I just like to bounce around. The one app the one website that I go to often is I still go to Wrestling Inc. from time to time, but I like I said, I really don't. I'm really not a legitimate lockdown website guy. Oh, Rageworks, that's the one. I go to Rageworks.
Nice.
I go to that one. No, really, I don't really have one in particular that I go to. The only one that I will go like to check up on stuff really is I go to New York Daily News, and it's funny because even that now is tough because they're gonna try to charge you 99 cents.
Yeah, man, they have a paywall. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it is crazy.
Like you only get a certain amount of clicks before they start saying, "Oh, you can't go on anymore."
Which is crazy because it's like, it's a local newspaper. Like Newsday does that too. It's insane.
Yeah, like I found out like, no, I go, especially if it's something that I know in the neighborhood or something. I go check, click, and send it. Come back and it's like, oh, well, for you to get more, you have to you pay 99 cents for it. And I'm like, no, thank you. That's all right. I'll just find another newspaper.
In the spirit of giving you something new to use, and this is, my wife calls it the Vigilante app. I use this app called Citizen. It's
I got that.
Oh man. If you want to know what crime is going on.
It is let me tell you something. It is not only thought inducing about what's going on in your neighborhood, but it's the funniest thing too.
Yep.
The other day I just got an alert. About 5 blocks down, a person was being terrorized by a raccoon.
Oh,
Did I
God.
not screen that and send that to everybody? I screenshot that shit and sent that to numerous people.
I woke up a few days ago and it said, police reporting to 9 people fighting in a laundromat. And I'm looking at the timestamp and I'm like, so 8 people were fighting in the laundromat at 4 a.m.? Like, the laundromat, why? What was so compelling to get into a fight? And it was legit, like, obviously the notes on the bottom, and it'll be like, oh, police were called. There was a report of a man with lacerations on his face. And I'm like, in a laundromat? Why?
And no, it's weird because, seeing where I work at, like, we get alerts from the job often. Then,
oh, jeez.
A fire or someone that's eloped, they escaped or something like that. But my coworker, he tells me, he says, listen, the funniest one that I've ever seen on this app, he says, I've gone on a state where I've got a report out of state where someone was arrested for stealing a cow. He says, that was hilarious. He goes, the one that I got was locally in Lower East Side. A man was apprehended for throwing pineapple slices at people.
Oh my God.
He says, you could have at least thrown the whole pineapple. You decided to throw slices. That goes, that guy had a plan. He had an agenda.
For real. You had mentioned you were a gamer. What are you playing now?
Oh man, it's ridiculous. I'm kind of upset with myself because I've stepped down from being hardcore gamer to recreational.
Okay.
And damn responsibilities in life. Darn it. Right now, I have stacks of games that I just finished Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, man! What a dope game.
Yeah, great game. I have to get into the DLC soon. So right now, as of this recording, I was getting in my Madden game, which I still get on. I've come to the thing with Madden where it's I don't buy every year. I skip a year.
Nice.
I've come to that. I'm not giving EA my money every year. It's not gonna happen. What else am I playing? I bought Red Dead. I've not gone to play Red Dead Redemption yet. I have not sat down there because I'll go on vacation next week.
Nice.
And I'm on vacation for work, which is basically I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna be home, and that's what I want to do. I want to sit and play and focus on it. I don't want to have these things where I'm having a couple of beers, I put the joystick down, and go, what the hell happened? Like I want to sit and focus on that game. Heard there's a lot going on with that shit. What else do I have here? Oh, of course, my WrestleMania, my WWE 2K19. I'm on that universe mode.
Putting in that work.
It's gotten better. The universe mode has gotten better.
You don't talk about Fire Pro too much.
No, I haven't been on in a while because you know why? I was sitting there. That game is amazing. You get down to like 800 characters.
That's all I do. I turned it on. I didn't even play. I went right into the character creator section. I'm like, oh, downloading you.
Exactly. That's exactly what I've been doing. I've just been doing that, and I just go download these guys and I put them in their practice. But what it is that I'm gonna get back on it this week. I'm gonna purchase the GM mode. And I'm really pissed at them because you have to buy it separately for $50.
What?
If you would have bought it digitally, it's $50.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
If you bought the I believe that they said if you bought the digital copy, you'd have gotten it for cheaper. But if you bought the hard copy, look it up on the PS Plus on the PS Store. They have it for $50, and that's the one I want. I want the GM mode. So
that's insane.
That's when I'll get back on it. But what else am I playing? I was great this year. This year was a great run for PlayStation. They had God of War. They had Spider-Man. They released Shenmue 1 and 2. They're waiting for 3. The Yakuza series I was still getting into. It was a lot. It was a lot this year for me.
Wow.
I was on overload.
And you're a mobile gamer too, right?
Yeah. I've been. It's funny because Facebook Messenger actually has some really time-consuming games. They do. But I've been playing. You know what game I was playing recently that I found hilarious to play was Shaq Fu.
Oh my God! Talk about a blast from the past.
Yeah, but they did an update of it. It's not like a remake, and it's actually pretty fun.
I heard you can play as Barack Obama.
Yeah, they have that as well. Have that mode as well.
That's pretty fun.
Try playing Fortnite on it. It's not that simple. It's not that easy to play on it.
Okay.
I try, and plus, the memories is way too much for it.
It's a massive game.
I'll play the WWE Supercars, any of the Madden games, those kind of games that they had there. I just miss the interaction. And plus, now that I also have a Switch, I'm just waiting for all the big things to come out for the Switch.
The Switch got some heat coming, definitely. Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Oh, there's Smash Brothers. I can't wait for that. And the next year with the Animal Crossing and stuff. But it's also I'm waiting for what else they're gonna release for that with the online package for the $20 a year thing. And they released some NES games which were pretty cool. but they still have some restrictions. You can't play with everybody. It's only local friends or people on your friends list.
Yeah.
But it's slowly but surely, man. And they're not so PG. They're allowing certain games that you can play on there now. It's starting to open up a little bit more for Nintendo. They're starting to grow up a little bit.
Nice. We talked about the tech. We talked about the games. We got to talk a little bit about the toys. I know the answer to this, but for the general public, what are some toys or collectibles that you're currently obsessing over?
Oh, me, nothing at all. As he looks at his shelves full of Funko Pops.
It's crazy,
Rich,
man.
Rich, it's bad. It's really bad.
Man, I see your social and you're like, oh, another pickup. Mind you, it's funny because I scaled down, you scaled up. It's like I'm downsizing my collection. Your collection is growing. And the crazy thing is, like, you find like the heat. Like, you find the ones that are, chase ones, retail exclusives. Like, oh, Jay's out there hustling.
Oh man, and I go to like the weirdest places. Like the other day, I'm coming down. I bring super producer Sylvia out of her class, with dance class, and we're coming down Broadway, and we walk into the GameStop on 84th, and I said, let me just go in here for a second. I walked out of there with 12 Pops, and the majority of them weren't even for me. She went crazy in there. So I'm breeding another one. I'm breeding a freaking collector.
What drew you to those?
But she, then she takes them out the box, and it hurts my heart, and I'm like, whatever. But no, I have this app. That's the other one. The other app I've been on a lot. Stashpedia.
Yep, I know that one.
It monitors the collection, and it also gives you an estimate of what they're worth now.
Yep, I use Pop Price Guide, the website, for that too.
Oh my goodness, and it's crazy because Rich, you don't even know. I've started a trend where everybody who's in my circle or know me, they're starting to buy them as well.
Oh no!
Everybody's like, they're sending me pictures. There's people like, oh, if you find this, can you pick it up for me?
Oh my God!
It's insane. It's crazy. And people, and all I do is just show one picture, and they go, oh, it's cute. I said, don't even go there. That's how it starts.
Yep, that's
I started the collection. My oldest, my highest. It's my two most expensive right now is my Hollywood Hogan that I got with the WWE game.
Yep.
That one, and I have the Dark Knight Rises Bane.
Oh, that's worth some dough.
Yeah, I have that one as well. And that was like the one that I started with. And this was like about 2011, 2012. There were like little cute things here and there. It wasn't until this past year that it just became a problem. The Marvel Collector Corps boxes that I was getting, the DC boxes, WWE at a time with their fan cricket, sometimes they would send them Pops as well. They don't really do it as much anymore. And the worst thing that I was able to get was a Target red card, and that's where I've just been finding everything that I've been grinding.
That's insane. But what's besides the Pops? What else are you collecting? Anything else, or just the Pops?
Yeah, no, I also I get my action figures as well, depending on what it is though, because it's like my wrestling figures. I look for the elite, so I look for like the rare finds. It's funny because I will go to some of these mom and pop department stores.
Absolutely.
And they would have these, they would have the old school Jericho still in still good in condition. It's like $8. And I'm like, oh, and I would tell Maddie, I said, Maddie, go to here, and he'll look. He's like, oh shit, and he'll go rack up and he'll pick up here and there. Or I'll go into like a telco and they'll have an old school cane with the fire extinguisher and the Undertaker, and I'll find them, and it's like $10. You go look them up, and they're already worth like $25, $26. I find these places that just have these throwaways. But that's really much what it is. Is either the wrestling figures. If I could get my hands on what I'm really looking for is a die-cast Voltron. I know it's already like in the thousands, but that's like my white whale, the die-cast Voltron. That's the one I want.
they re-released one that's die-cast, but it's about 400.
Really?
Yeah, dude, it's up there. And I mean, what I ended up doing was they when they did the new Voltron cartoon, I just bought all those lions, and then they re-released Voltron 84. They're not die-cast, but I just ended up just buying the lions that way.
Yeah, I was in Toy Tokyo one day, and I saw that they had one, but I asked the person, I said, "Is that die-cast?" And they're like, "No, they don't really make die-cast like that anymore because of the paint and stuff like that." And I'm like, But I've heard that you can find them. You really can find them. That's my white whale. I need to find a Voltron. That's the one I want.
What was your favorite toy or collectible when you were growing up?
My era is I had the GI Joes, the Thundercats. The Thundercats, when you had the ring and you put it in the back, eyes light up.
Absolutely, I had that. I know.
Transformers was die-cast as well.
They were.
They were metal. They weren't plastic like these. But I'll tell you, my most valuable toy that I have to this day, and it's in near mint condition, surprisingly, I have a 1984 Cabbage Patch.
Wow.
1984. I was 8 years old. My mother got it for me as a Christmas gift. This is when my mother used to work for the councilman of our district. And one sec. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, and she was able to get it for me. It was like back then it was hard. It was rare to find Cabbage Patches, and she was able to get it, and I still have him to this day. He's right there on the shelf, and I've not passed it down to Sally, but he's around.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Last few rapid fire questions. This one's usually a good one for a lot of people. What item have you purchased recently that's less than $100 that's made your life either easier or just more enjoyable?
Less than $100 has made my life. My Al Bundy Polk High pop vine, a Funko Pop.
Nice.
I bought three. I bought one for Josie's boy, whose collection is getting big as well. He's gotten on the. I love his collection because he loves all the pop culture, cheesy stuff like Baywatch and stuff like that.
Yep.
I got one for him. I bought two for me. One is in the box, and I recently just opened my first Funko Pop. This is the first time I've taken one out of the box, and I took Al out. I took him out the box, so he's in studio. And whenever I saw the show, he's there holding his football in my hand, and he's gonna make my life so much easier.
Nice, that's pretty dope. All right, that closes out the hot seat. We always like to give people I like to call it the reach one, teach one. For anybody who's looking to get into podcasting or content creation, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Be comfortable with yourself. Right now, I'm trying to help this young lady out. Hopefully, she can get on board and she wants to start something. She's an entertaining girl. She wants to do something, and I'm trying to get her niche in. And I think what a lot of people is that they overthink what they're going to do. They're not comfortable with just being themselves. And one thing that I learned when I first early on started to do the podcast was that I didn't sound like myself. I sounded, although I was me, I was always trying to portray like I was like this big time announcer type kind of voice. Like I wasn't genuine to who I was. It took a couple of episodes. Actually, it took one episode in which I sat there and I knuckled down and I was able to just open up and just be me. And that's when everything Jay just finally came out the closet, I guess, whatever. But I think that's one thing that people need to understand is that once you understand the work and the grind that it takes to do something like this, be comfortable with yourself. Be comfortable with of the product. Don't always chase what everybody is doing. Don't always have to do the relationships ain't shit podcast or that dude or that female burn me. Like, you don't have to do all that. Be comfortable with yourself, and you'll find out that the road will be much easier for you.
That's a great way to put it together. Where can people find you and connect with you and keep up with your work?
Oh, sweet. I remember years ago, it was just like one or two places. As I do on at the end of every episode, we can find us on Facebook, on the Regular Season Sportscast, a like and group page, as well as on Turnbuckle Tabloid, as well as, of course, now we're starting up. I started up a new thing, and I'm hoping everybody gets on board with as well. Social media stand-up. I want to share my love of stand-up comedy with the masses, and I have these new pages where I show vintage or current stand-up comics, and the goal is to one day for Jay to do what he's been wanting to do since he was a little boy, when he saw Fozzie Bear on the Muppet Show go on stage and perform and bomb, but still is persistent on being a comedian. And one day Jay will do his 5 to 7 minute set in front of a crowd. So nice. Keep an eye out for that. It's a social media outlet. That's social media stand up. You get us on Instagram there, as well as on Facebook, and on Twitter is at SM Stand Up. And anywhere else you can get us with TRSS, the Regular Season Sportscast, on Twitter, the Regular Season Sport on Instagram, Turnbuckle Tabloid on Instagram and Facebook, like and group page as well. And of course, all podcasting outlets, just type our names and it comes up. I've even found like the low level podcasting apps, like those rinky dink ones that you didn't think would be associated with something, and you type in Turnbuckle Tabloid and it comes up and plays a show. And I'm like, I think we should be getting a residual for this shit. I'm not sure.
Dude, once you get on iTunes, everything kind of pulls from iTunes. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where you can get us at. And of course, get us if that's difficult for you. Get us at RageWorks. That's where the links are there for that as well. So
there you go. Jay, thank you for sharing the toys and tech of your trade.
Oh, thank you. So like I said, it's probably been years since I've been interviewed. I actually feel relaxed. Can we do this again sometime? This is amazing.
For sure, my dude, for sure.
Well, once again, thanks again, brother. Love to the family and love to everybody at RageWorks. Make sure you download these episodes and download everything associated with RageWorks. Why go anywhere else? We do it for the culture. Pop culture, that is.
Thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, sir. Have a good one.
All right, that wraps our interview with Jay Santy. Links to all of the items mentioned in this interview will be in the show notes for this episode. As always, as I mentioned at the start of the show, and I'll mention it once more, some of those links may be affiliate links where we receive a small commission if you click one of those links to purchase one of the items mentioned. The commissions that we raise go towards improving RageWorks, equipment, etc. So by all means, please feel free to use those links to purchase any of the items discussed in this episode. We got one more RageWorks creator on deck, and that is going to be Josie's boy, host of Call Me When It's Over. He'll definitely be one of our next creators on deck in a future episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade. The next episode coming up will be with Greg Clunis, author, podcaster, and just all-around great guy. We take a deep dive into the new book that he has hitting shelves this month, as well as a host of other things. That's going to be our next episode, hitting iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and all podcasting platforms. And lastly, I will mention that will be the start of our new Tuesday bi-weekly schedule for Toys and Tech of the Trade. We have lots on deck, lots of great creators from all different walks of life, whether it's bloggers, podcasters, video creators, pro wrestlers. Everybody has a unique story and has unique toys and tech of their trade. Last but not least, if you're interested in being on a future episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, drop me a line, rich@rageworks.net, or use the contact form on the site. If you want to keep up with everything we're doing, you can follow us on social media. Our primary platforms are Facebook and Instagram, but we do engage on Twitter as well. If you're in the New York City area and you're going to be at Toy Fair next month, you can look for myself and Jimbo Slice on the show floor, covering all the latest toys heading our way in the coming year. All right, guys, thank you for taking the time to enjoy this episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade. And if you really want to help us out, drop a review on iTunes, Google Play, or the podcasting platform of your choice. We would really appreciate it. All right, guys, catch you on the next one. Peace.
Right now, switch your family to T-Mobile and get 4 lines for $25 a line with AutoPay and 5G access included on America's largest 5G network. So don't wait. Get unlimited and nationwide 5G access for the whole family for just $25 a line. Visit a T-Mobile store or T-Mobile.com today.
Plus taxes and fees. Customers may notice lower speeds and further reduction if using over 50 gigs a month due to data prioritization. Video at 480p. Unlimited while on our network. Qualifying credit and 4+ lines required. Capable device required for 5G. Coverage not available in some areas. Some uses may require certain features. See T-Mobile.com.
At Metro, you get everything you need to rule your school year. Right now, get a new phone and tablet on us when you switch. Plus, enjoy high-speed data on both devices for just $75 a month. And with one Amazon Prime membership included, you can watch Amazon originals, movies and shows, stream endless music, and enjoy free shipping. Metro by T-Mobile. Rule your day. With new lines of service after rebate redemption plus sales tax and activation fee. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime has a $12.99 a month cost. Restrictions apply.